This is the last UFC pay-per-view of the year, so I have put in extra work to help put cash in your pockets like I've been doing every single year. Instead of just watching MMA, I get to live my dream life and literally go on holiday because of how I win money on MMA. Thank you, Carlos Prates, for paying for my holiday. And I feel like going on another holiday, so UFC 323 is gonna pay for that. In this video, I'm gonna go through every single fight on the card from the main event all the way to the first fight of the night and give you my betting breakdowns and predictions for every single fight on the card. This weekend, the UFC is back in good old Las Vegas, Nevada in the T-Mobile Arena. And we have a rematch of Merab Dvalishvili, the bantamweight GOAT, taking on his former opponent, Petr Yan. We also have Alexandre Pantoja, someone who's trying to work his way up to be the flyweight GOAT, taking on an up-and-coming young beast in Joshua Van in the co-main event. 2 title fights on this card. We also have Henry Cejudo taking on another up-and-coming bantamweight beast in Payton Talbott. Ziam Błachowicz is on the card taking on Bogdan Guskov. We also got former flyweight champion Brandon Moreno against another up-and-comer, Tatsuro Taira. So this card is absolutely stacked. The UFC does it again, and Lucrative James is about to do it again. And by again, I mean put more money in your pocket. So let's run the intro. I'll see you on the other side, and we can make this cheddar. Nice coffee, lads, because it's about to be a long one. This is the last pay-per-view of the year, and I'm very happy to be in front of your TV screens, your tablet screens, your iPhone screens, whatever you may call it. If you're a weirdo who has Android, no, I'm joking. I'm happy to be on your Android screens as well. It's been a hell of a year, boys. A hell of a year. 2025, one of the greatest years of my life, and I hope it has been a good year for you as well. If it hasn't, don't worry. We can still make it a fantastic one towards the end of the year. We have about a month left now, but I am not taking my foot off the gas. In fact, I'm more motivated to make more money because I want to keep smashing this MMA betting scene, these MMA betting records that I keep on setting. Before we get into the card, I will ask you to subscribe because I just checked and 50% of my viewers don't subscribe. So I'm getting 30,000 views on my YouTube videos. 15,000 of you guys don't subscribe. I mean, what's going on? I'm putting money in your pocket, so it's beneficial for you to subscribe. So get that done for me, boys. And then we're going to break down the card. I also want to tease a video I have coming out very soon, boys, which is the year in review. I'm going to be going over the best fight of the entire year. I'm going to be going over some of the best bets and some of the worst bets. I'm going to laugh at myself, some of the terrible bets I've made this year. We're also going to crown Fighter of the Year. Who is the Fighter of the Year? We're going to crown the worst Fighter of the Year. A bunch of cool awards that we're going to give out on this YouTube channel. That video will be coming out in a couple of weeks after the last card of the year, so bear with me on that one, boys. Subscribed to get notified about that one. As I mentioned, I am on holiday right now, but the grind doesn't stop. I'm still here doing tape research while I'm on holiday, studying the fights, breaking them down, making my bets, sending the bets out to my members, and also making these videos for you even while I'm on holiday, because at the end of the day, MMA betting pays for this holiday. So how could I neglect it while I was on holiday? Carlos Prates specifically paid for this holiday and this villa. Gigantic villa, lads, $1,000 a night, and it was all paid for by Carlos Prates KO in round 2 that we cashed. We cashed his money line in a max bet, the KO prop, and the KO in round 2. So I'll forever be indebted to my man Carlos Prates for that one. But I want to go on holiday again, boys. I like going on holiday. I don't want to stop it. So let's go into this UFC 323 fight card right now, and I'm going to tell you a couple of holiday making spots. In the main event of the evening, we have a rematch with Merab Dvalishvili, the bantamweight GOAT, taking on Petr Yan for the second time. Merab Dvalishvili coming into this fight with a record of 21 wins, 4 losses. Petr Yan, on the other hand, very similar record, 19 wins with only 5 losses. Currently, they have Merab Dvalishvili as a massive -450 favorite, one of the biggest favorites on the entire card, with the underdog price tag on Petr Yan coming back at +350. So first things first, boys, I'm a sports bettor. I look at the betting odds. I look at the betting odds before I look at the fight sometimes. And Petr Yan is a massive underdog. In the first fight, because this is a rematch, boys, way back in 2023 they fought, right? March the 11th, 2023. Petr Yan in the first fight, in that fight, was a massive favorite. He was like minus 250, and now he's plus 350. So how times have changed. It's always interesting to see rematches and the way lines change. By the end of the day, man, Merab Dvalishvili proved he was the best bantamweight on the planet that night against Petr Yan, and then he's just proved it time and time again in every single fight since, against Henry Cejudo, against Umar Nurmagomedov, against Sean O'Malley twice, and more recently against Corey Sandhagen. The guy hasn't been beat since the Petr Yan fight. He was barely beat before that, and it's going to be a very tough ask for Petr Yan to get this one back. A couple of the things standing out for me that I see on first glance is the activity of Merab Dvalishvili, right? And sometimes activity can go for you or activity can go against you. And what I mean by that is if you're active and in regular competition in MMA, in jiu-jitsu, in boxing, whatever it may be, a lot of times you don't have any ring rust, right? You're ready to go. You've been sparring, you've been fighting, you know what it feels like in the octagon. You're not going to suffer from any ring rust or any hesitancy or nervousness in the octagon, right? Now, that's the way it can work for you, right? The way it can work against you is in these fight camps and even in the fight itself. As an MMA fighter, you're picking up injuries. You know, you're going toe-to-toe with the like of Corey Sandhagen, Sean O'Malley, and Umar Nurmagomedov. You're going to take some bumps. You're going to take some bruises. And obviously, it takes time to recover from those bumps and bruises. So if you're fighting every 3 months, like Merab has been doing, maybe we can say now, on his 4th fight, and it is, boys, his 4th fight of 2025, which is kind of crazy for a champion, maybe he isn't fully recovered, right? So you can look at it both ways. I honestly lean to it being a negative for Merab, that he's fighting 4 times in 1 calendar year, especially considering his last fight was in October the 4th. You know, that's 1 month ago. It's really like 2 months ago, but it's 1 month and a half ago from when I'm recording this video. I'm recording this video very early. I've done all my research. I'm fully locked in, boys. Bets have already gone out to my elite zone way before you're even seeing this. If you want those bets, the link is in the bio, boys. I basically help you become a effing pro at this MMA betting game. You can get access to everything there, but I have done my research. I have locked in the bets, but it isn't long until Merab is going back in there after only being out of the octagon for 2 months. It's not long to recover. Yes, he won the Corey Sandhagen fight quite clean. Corey still landed a lot of leg kicks. He still landed a lot of strikes. He still busted up and bruised Merab Dvalishvili throughout his entire body, right? Merab Dvalishvili still has to make another weight cut, the 4th weight cut in the entire calendar year. I'm not going to harp on about the activity of Merab anymore. I've told you all you need to know, right? I just lean to it being a negative more than a positive for Merab. Now, Petr Yan has only fought once in 2025. It was a unanimous decision win against Marcus McGee, where he dropped the 1st round, but he won the 2nd and 3rd rounds. And he looked good in that fight, you know. It was the old Petr Yan where he always loses the 1st round, but comes back in the 2nd and 3rd round. And I tend to think that this fight is not going to play out the same way as the first fight did. I mean, in the first fight, Dvalishvili just basically overran Petr Yan. You know, he made it look easy. It wasn't tough for him. He won basically every single round with ease. Now, in that first fight between them, Merab basically overwhelmed Petr with volume like he does to everyone. But he did it from the first round, you know. Within the first 30, to be honest, it was like 15 seconds. He was already in on a single leg, already in on a takedown. You know, you fast forward 30 seconds after that, he's shooting another takedown, and he's just throwing so many strikes. And this is in round 1, right? In my opinion, that was Merab's best performance of all time. I think the Sean O'Malley performance was, you know, the second fight was probably up there as well. Even his performance against Corey was decent and one of his better ones, but I would say that his performance against Petr Yan was the greatest performance he's ever had. I don't think the fight's going to go the same, but I do think Merab's going to approach it the same way, right? I think Petr will be a little bit smarter this time. I think he'll know what to expect this time. He is one of the best at making reads in the octagon in MMA history, honestly. Like, the reads he makes on the fly are amazing. He wasn't able to do it as well as he would have liked against Merab, but being in there with him for 25 minutes, I have to trust that the reads he is able to make is going to be beneficial for him in this fight. I kind of feel like Petr Yan's going to win more rounds than he did in the first fight. I think Petr Yan's going to look better than he did in the first fight. Something that I'm a little bit worried about, though, is the fact that Petr Yan may be declining, right? I thought Petr Yan was declining about a couple of years ago, you know? And even his fight against Yadong Song Marcus McGee, and even Davison Figueiredo, I don't think he's the fighter that he once was 5 years ago. I personally don't. But it doesn't mean he can't compete against Merab Dvalishvili here. This is some very important information I have to tell you, boys. I think that Petr Yan was injured in the first fight. You know, if you watch that first round, he's competing pretty well. He's defending all of the takedown attempts from Merab Dvalishvili. And in the second round, he looks like a completely different man. He's very slow. He's getting his leg kicked out from underneath him. It looks like his leg is not functioning 100% correctly. He looks slow on the back foot, very hesitant to throw his right hand. Petr Yan made a public statement on his Instagram, I believe it was on his Instagram, after his loss to Merab. He mentioned that before the fight, he needed physical therapy, and he took physical therapy, right? Then he goes on to say that he doesn't really have excuses and he tried his best and stuff like that. It was translated from Russian to English, so it's a little bit hard to understand the context, but what I get from that statement is pretty damning. He's saying he needed physical therapy, and basically he's saying he was injured, right? In the fight, you can clearly see the injury show itself after round one, in my opinion. You go back and watch it and you tell me what you think. In the first round, he's standing in orthodox a lot with his right hand back. In the second round, he's in southpaw way more than the first round, which tells me he had an injury with his right hand, and he didn't throw it a lot after that as well, right? A lot less than we've seen in basically every single fight of his career. So I think that's a talking point here as well, boys. Was Petr Yan injured in that fight? How severe was his injury? Did it affect him? I think it's obvious to answer to those questions are yes. How severe is it? I don't really know. Boys, I have to favor Merab in this fight. How can I not? The guy's beaten everyone. The guy's looked good against everyone. The guy dominated Petr Yan, injured or not already. I have to favor Merab. But I also have to say that the line is wide. Minus 450 is too wide in my opinion, boys. Like I always tell you, the way to earn money from sports betting is betting on value. Plus EV betting. It is not betting on who you think is going to win, right? I'm not saying I'm betting on Petr Yan. I'm not even saying that I don't think Merab's going to win. I'm not even saying that there's value on Petr Yan. What I am saying is that plus EV betting is the way to go, right? And sometimes you're going to be wrong. A lot of times you're going to be wrong with plus EV betting. I thought Corey Sandhagen was a good value bet against Merab. I was wrong. I hold my hands up. I made a wrong pick at plus 300. We move on to the next fight. I can't hold that pick in my mind when I'm talking about this fight, right? I think that Petr Yan has value on his line. Now I am coming out and saying it. I'm going to go out and say that Petr Yan is the betting pick for this show, for me, for this fight. Am I going to look like a fool fading Merab Dvalishvili again, picking against him? Probably. He's maybe the best fighter we've ever seen in MMA, let alone bantamweight. But I have to stick to my guns here, boys. MMA betting and betting on sports in general has made me financially free. So of course, I'm going to stick to my guns. A lot of times I'm going to look like an idiot, right? A lot of times I'm going to pick a fighter who gets dominated. I'm going to bet on a fighter who gets dominated. And this is a tough ask, but I just feel like plus 350 odds is a little bit wide in a bantamweight contest where his opponent has virtually no finishing upside when you look at the history of his fights, despite his last two fights against Corey and Sean almost getting a finish and getting a finish. I don't think he has much finishing upside against Petr Yan. And if it's going to be a five-round fight, I think Petr Yan's going to compete on minutes. I think he's going to compete on moments. And I think he can win rounds here. And I think he can keep up with the cardio if he's not injured, at least to compete in the later rounds. And I think he can squeak out a decision win here. I truly believe that. I'm a sports bettor, boys, not a predictor. And my sports betting pick is Petr Yan at plus 350 odds. In the next fight of the night, we have Alexandre Pantoja taking on Joshua Van. Alexandre Pantoja has a veteran MMA record of 30 wins with only 5 losses. Joshua Van, on the other hand, half the amount of wins at 15 and less than half the amount of losses at just 2. Currently, they have Alexandre Pantoja, the current champion, as a big minus 225 favorite with the underdog price tag on Joshua Van coming back at plus 190. So yeah, very exciting fight here for me, guys. Very interested to talk to you about this one. We have an up-and-coming beast, Joshua Van. The fight style that I love, walks forward into range, puts the hands on his opponents. Very good boxer, which we don't see at high-level MMA too much. We got Jack Della Maddalena, we have Joshua Van, we have a few other guys out there, but we don't have too many high-level boxers, so it's always nice to see someone like Joshua Van come in to MMA and show that the MMA fighters still have hands. Pantoja, on the other hand, very different style of fighter. He is mainly a grappler, very big power in his hands as well, but he's a little bit reckless on the feet, a little bit loose on the feet. And really what he likes to do is take you down and submit you. Is he going to be able to do that here? Is he going to be able to take Joshua Van down and either submit him or control him? That really is the crux of this fight to me. You know, is Van going to be able to keep the fight on the feet or not? And although I think it largely comes down to that, I don't want to be rude and say this is purely a striker versus grappler matchup, because I want to give some respect to Pantoja's striking. As I said, it's a little bit clunky. It's a little bit loose, not technical and open, but boy, does he hit hard. He can crack anybody on his day. He knocked out Matt Schnell brutally. He has hurt multiple opponents and cracked them with big shots, even after going on to submit them. And even though his record doesn't necessarily show it, I really believe that Pantoja has some big power in his hands for a flyweight. And he can land a little bit unsuspectingly, considering the jankiness and the looseness of his strikes. He throws some good body shots. He does that thing where he runs hands down, which is not a good technique for the most part. Because he's a flyweight, he's fast, and he does it in between the grappling scenarios a lot of the times. He catches his opponents off guard. But he runs in hands down and throws about 3 or 4 really big body shots before then going in for a grappling attack. And those body shots hurt his opponents, and they definitely keep them, you know, at arm's length and wary to throw shots at Pantoja because they don't want to get hit in the body again. So I feel like his striking, I don't want to say it's underrated, because I really think it's going to be exposed at some point, maybe even in this matchup, which I'm going to get to in a minute. But I do want to say that it's a little bit unsuspecting, right? Not underrated, because I feel like people, you know, they respect Pantoja a lot. But it's unsuspecting, because if you watch tape on him, sometimes you don't see these little body shots he's landing, you know? And obviously, if you look at his record, barely any knockouts, you don't understand how much power he has. And I do think he has some power for a little guy. In case you're wondering, boys, as you can see, I am in a different location than I was at the start of the show. So I'm currently on holiday at the moment. I'm in lovely Spain, and I'm in a different villa in a different part of the island. I'm in a nice little island off the coast of Spain, enjoying my time here, enjoying some of my riches. Carlos Prates paid for this villa, so very much appreciative to you, Carlos Prates. But you know, even though I'm on holiday and I'm a little bit sniffly, as you can tell, a little bit sick, I'm still here doing my tape study, doing my research, and taking time out of my day instead of being on the beach to come here and give you this video. So if you appreciate that, I would appreciate you subscribing and maybe sharing the video with one of your friends. We're almost at 20,000 subscriber, boys. It's been kind of a crazy run. You know, it took a long time to get to 10K, but we've jumped to 20K in a very short amount of time. We're about to hit 20K. So if you can help me reach that 20K mark, I will be very appreciative. And I'm actually going to do a big giveaway when I hit 20K followers. I don't know what I'm going to give away yet. Maybe some UFC tickets, maybe something even a little bit more. Let me know in the comments if you've got any ideas of what I can give away, but I'm doing a big giveaway at 20K, boys. So share with your friends and subscribe, and I'd appreciate it. But let's get back to this Royval versus Van fight. So yes, Pantoja has some skills on the feet, but for the most part, it is a striker versus grappler matchup. If we go back and look at the times Josh Van has struggled in MMA, right? It comes on, I want to say his 3rd or 4th pro fight, which I actually watched yesterday, boys. I don't remember it was 3rd or 4th. It was something like that, right? Very early on in his career. He fought a fighter named Devin Jackson. And that fighter went out there, and within 56 seconds, something like that, because I remember looking at the clock, you know, when he got the first takedown. Within 56 seconds, he had took Joshua Van down, and he was mauling him on the ground. Now, like I said, this was Joshua Van's 3rd or 4th pro fight. He was 20 years of age at the time, and Devon Jackson was 27. So there was like a man versus boy in there almost, right? But he was down on the ground, getting wrestle-fucked and mauled within 56 seconds. The fight goes on, and, you know, I'm not going to speak through the whole fight. You can go watch it if you want. It's only a 2-round fight, but Joshua Van gets back up to his feet multiple times. He gets put in an arm bar. He gets taken down about 5 or 6, 7 times in one fight. Eventually, he taps to a rear naked choke with only 2 seconds left on the clock in round 2, right? He put up a valiant effort, to be honest, but you saw that he didn't really know what he was doing in the grappling in that fight, right? But like I said, 3rd, 4th pro fight, 20 years old, but he didn't really know what he was doing in the grappling. He had some good survivability, but he was making a lot of technical mistakes. He had no balance in the wrestling. he looked pretty bad, to be honest, in the wrestling, even more than the jiu-jitsu and the grappling. Now, you fast forward to his UFC debut, which took place in 2023, just 2 years after that rear naked choke defeat to Devon Jackson, right? And he has actually gone on record and said that he only started training wrestling 6 months prior to his UFC debut. Now, a lot of people won't know that, but boys, his UFC debut is in 2023. The guy's fighting for a title in 2025. So first of all, that's an insane run to the title. Second of all, he's gone on record saying he's only been training wrestling 6 months before his UFC debut, which was in the 6th month, June, of 2023. So he started training wrestling in January 2023, right? We're about to be in January 2026. So he's only had just less than 3 years of wrestling training at this point. So there's a couple of things I want to touch on regarding that. One, I believe him because I can see it in his fights. He's a terrible wrestler in 2021. Just go back and watch the Devon Jackson fight. Jiu-jitsu, not the worst of all time, although not great, but he's a bad wrestler, right? Can't stuff a takedown to save his life. 2023 against Zolgaz Zumagulov, you see his wrestling defense has improved heavily. And you go back and watch his entire UFC career, his wrestling defense has improved. So I think he's a very fast learner. He's only a young guy, 24 years old, Joshua Van, crazy. His wrestling defense has improved. His wrestling in general has improved massively, but he's still only been training it for 3 years. Is that enough time to now go and fight one of the best wrestlers and the most relentless wrestlers of the division in Alexandre Pantoja? I don't know, boys. That's a tough question, and that's a tough ask, in my opinion. Asking Joshua Van to go out there and have to wrestle, because he's going to have to wrestle in this 5-round contest, to wrestle against one of the most relentless wrestlers in the entire division. It's going to be tough, man. I kind of wish Joshua Van was taking this fight in a couple of years where I would pick him outright against Alexandre Pantoja. But at this point in his career, it's a very, very tough ask. Now, on the striking, right? The striking is a completely different game. I think this guy's been striking his whole life. At least he looks like that. I didn't dig deep into his striking background, but I don't need to, because everything that I see in his UFC fights is all I need to see. A very clean boxer and much higher level striker than Pantoja, I can tell you that. The way Pantoja walks forward into range worries me a little bit. I think Joshua Van is going to have a field day with his counters. Now, what I'm struggling with is determining if Pantoja is going to be able to take the counters, continue to apply the pressure, and then start to drag Joshua Van down to the canvas. I kind of feel like he will be able to do it, honestly, just because Pantoja has such an elite chin. But at the end of the day, man, if you're taking big hooks off Joshua Van, you can only take them for so long, or eventually you're going to get dropped, like Brandon Royval did, and like a lot of fighters that have fought Josh Van have found out. Eventually, you're going to get sat down. Eventually, you're going to be deterred. You know, and if you're not deterred, you're just going to keep getting caught more often, because now you're bloodied up. You're a little bit more tired. Maybe your vision is impaired because you're swolled up a little bit. You're in pain. You're a little bit disorientated from taking multiple shots. You're not as fresh as you was at minute 1 because Joshua Van has been countering you all night, right? So it can kind of go both ways. Now, I will say that you need to pressure Joshua Van to beat him, in my opinion. If we go back and look at the first loss he has against Devon Jackson, like that I mentioned before, he's get taken down, mauled on the ground, heavy pressure from Jackson. If we go back and look at his only other loss in MMA and his only loss in the UFC, which was against Charles Johnson, Charles Johnson was pressuring him. Now, it was tough to pressure him because he was taking big shots, but Charles Johnson was throwing a lot of volume, a lot of strikes, gave Van a lot to think about, did not let Van set up his traps, did not let Van play his cerebral boxing counter-striking game, and it resulted in Charles Johnson landing a big uppercut and knocking Van out, right? And then even if we look at his last fight against Brandon Royval, the times Brandon Royval had success was when he was pressuring Joshua Van. He was landing that uppercut straight a lot, right? He was pressuring Van. Maybe he would get hit once or twice, but he wouldn't stop pressuring after he got hit, and he would get the get back, right? And I've seen Pantoja do that time and time again. Pantoja gets cracked and then he just walks forward into range. So I feel like Pantoja's got the style that you need to beat Van, but also because of his striking defense is fairly non-existent and he's just a level below on the feet, his willingness to walk forward into range could also be his detriment. And that's why we love MMA. because there's so many puzzles and things to figure out. So boys, we've touched on the striking, touched on the wrestling, the grappling, and the jiu-jitsu, right? But not so much. And I want to go a little bit deeper into the jiu-jitsu and show you something that I have found during my research that was a little bit alarming to me. So Joshua Van was on the Rampage Jackson podcast recently. And Rampage asked him the question, how do you think the jiu-jitsu will go if he takes you down? What will happen in the BJJ? And this was Joshua Van's answer.
But how's your jiu-jitsu defense, though? In case he does get you down, because it is an MMA
submitted.
fight.
He would definitely get submitted if you take me down. Because I don't really like hugging people, you know, when I fight. So I don't really show out like that. But and nobody ever like try my jiu-jitsu either. So, you know what I mean? It'd be a great time for me to showcase my
That's
skill.
what's up.
So there it is. Joshua Van has outright said that he will submit Alexandre Pantoja if he gets taken down in this contest. Now, there's a few things that I want to speak about on that, right? When I watched that, I was like, okay, it's a little bit alarming, right? It's not a great sign because he's not going to submit Pantoja if Pantoja takes him down. Pantoja is a much higher level grappler than him. He will bully him on the ground and make him look silly on the ground, right? So it's like a black belt talking to a blue belt. Yeah, it's very disrespectful, Joshua Van's mindset. Not disrespectful in the fact, like, from him, but objectively, looking outside the frame. Like, Pantoja's a black belt and Josh is a blue belt. In terms of MMA grappling at the high levels, maybe Josh is a brown belt in his gym, but there's a difference in belts, right? Of course, Josh needs to think that he's super high level. It's a little bit delusional, but you have to have delusion to be a champion. So I'm not saying it's disrespectful on his part, right? But me looking at it objectively, if anyone else said that, I would say it's disrespectful. Because it comes from Van, good luck to you, brother. You should believe that, right? I champion it. But there is such thing as being delusional too much to where it can kind of get to your head and cloud your judgment in the fight, make you make bad mistakes and ultimately get yourself submitted, right? And I do believe that if we go back and look at some of Joshua Van's fights where he is making terrible decisions in the grappling and the jiu-jitsu specifically, like rolling for leg locks and ending up on bottom, I think we can safely say that he actually believes what he's saying here and it isn't bravado and he believes that he would submit Pantoja. Right? And I mean, him rolling for leg locks has kind of showed me that. So if he believes that he will submit Pantoja, will he roll for leg locks like we've seen him done in the past? Remember, I'm coupling this interview with things I've seen from Joshua in the past. I'm not just relying on the interview, right? The interview kind of explains what we've seen in the past to a degree. And I think it would be a massive mistake for Joshua Van to go out there, believe in his jiu-jitsu so much to where he would engage in the wrestling and grappling attacks of Pantoja, because I'm telling you now, he's going to find himself on bottom. He's going to find himself in disadvantageous positions and probably even find himself submitted, right? So I hope that if he is taken down or semi-taken down or there's a chance to roll for a leg lock or disengage from the grappling attack of Pantoja, I hope that he does choose the right move, which would be to move away from the jiu-jitsu and get back to his striking, right? So fight IQ, I'm not 100% sure in the grappling. It's very high level for Joshua Van from what I've seen. Coupled with the interview, it's just a little tidbit of information that I wanted to share with you guys, as I always do on this show. So boys, I've broke this one down in detail for you because I really think it's a hard fight to call. And oftentimes, my most confident predictions will kind of be short because I'm confident. I know what's going to happen. I believe I know. I just say it how it is. The predictions that go on for a longer time, there's a lot more to talk about. There's a lot more to think about. Sometimes I'm less confident. And I'm not super confident in this one because I think it's a very, very tough fight. And either guy can win on the day, as what it usually is in any of these title fights. And goes back to what I said with Jan and Merab, right? I'm going to go with Pantoja as my pick for this fight. I think that the fight IQ I've seen from Joshua Van, that coupled with some of the comments that I've just mentioned now, tell me that there will be extended grappling scenarios at some point in this fight, right? Like Joshua Van's previous fights, a lot of them get into the grappling, at one point or another. Not for long. Right, if we go back and look at the Royval fight, to be honest, it was never in the grappling. It was a stand-up war. If we look at the Ray Cerrulla fight, Cerrulla took him down multiple times, shoulder throws, stuff like that. And I could go for his entire career, and I've taped basically all of his fights, boys. I could really go in depth, but I'm just going to keep it short and sweet. From what I've seen with Joshua Van, I think, and coupled with the relentless attack of Pantoja, I think that for sure this fight's going to be in the grappling at some point. And I can't trust Josh to disengage from the grappling enough to pick him to win the fight. Do I think the line should be a bit closer? Probably. I would probably line Pantoja about minus 150 or something. I don't think I can get to minus 225 here. Maybe an under is a play here because I really feel like Joshua Van can knock out Pantoja, you know, especially in a 5-round contest. I think Joshua Van's a 5-round fighter. And although Pantoja has looked good late in fights against Erceg and some of these other fighters, I still think he gets tired. I still think that his cardio isn't the best and he just pushes through and his will to win a mentality is so high level. But I think someone like Joshua Van maybe has better cardio than him, to be honest. Now, if the fight's in the grappling, he might not and he might will. That's kind of why I like the under. Pantoja's a black belt fight and a blue or purple belt here. He really is, right? So he can always submit him. He can submit anyone. At the end of the day, we have seen Joshua Van knocked out before. So Pantoja cracks hard. It's not impossible that he catches him with something. And obviously, as I said, Joshua Van can put it on him, counter him, and maybe beat him up late and finish him. So I don't mind the under 4.5 rounds here. The odds are not out for that total yet. So I'm not saying it's a bet. It depends on the price. But that's the way I would lean. You know, Pantoja as the pure pick. Maybe I would line it a bit closer and probably an under 4.5 rounds if it's good price would be a good shot. So that's the breakdown for the co-main event, boys. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I enjoy breaking it down for you. In the next fight of the night, we have another banger flyweight contest with former champion Brandon Moreno taking on potential future champion in Tatsuro Taira. Brandon Moreno, veteran record, as you would imagine, 23 wins, 8 losses, 2 draws. Tatsuro Taira, very clean record, 17 wins with only 1 loss. Currently, they have Tatsuro Taira, a minus 125 favorite, with the underdog price tag on Brandon Moreno coming back at plus 105. So another flyweight banger on this fight card. Shout out to the UFC. They've stacked the first or the last 4 fights of the night with only bantamweight and flyweight fighters. And they're my favorite weight classes. Flyweight is my favorite weight class. I just believe that the skill sets they hold in flyweight are by far the best skill sets in the entire game. The cardio they have is by far the best cardio. The speed is by far the best speed. So they're just a pleasure and a joy to watch in terms of high-level MMA. I can't believe at one point Dana White was going to get rid of the flyweight division. And now we have Brandon Moreno versus Tatsuro Taira in not even a main event or co-main event spot. That's how good the flyweight division is, in my opinion. Because we have a flyweight contest in the co-main event as well. It's not like the only flyweight contest, right? Next week, we have a main event, which is a flyweight main event, MNL Cape versus Brandon Royval. So, yeah, great division, boys, and 2 great fighters of the division here. You know, Tatsuro Taira took an L not too long ago, but he bounced back with a great win against Hyung Sung Park. I was actually live to see that win. I bet on him to beat Hyung Sung Park and to finish Hyung Sung Park. So to watch that there live with my boy Zar, it was a fantastic experience.
Face crack.
Yes! Let's go! Taira inside the distance, catch it. I'm very happy. 100. I'm very happy, thank you. I'm very happy, thank you.
The same night that my boy Chris Duncan got the win, so yeah, a great experience. And to be honest, boys, I don't really take much away from him from losing against Brandon Royval. It was a tough fight. It was a big step up in competition. He was going from fighting Carlos Hernandez and best fight Alex Perez to fighting Brandon Royval in a main event contest, 5 rounds, in a very tough stylistic matchup. Not only a big step up in competition, but also a tough stylistic matchup. You know, Brandon Royval, someone who's very, very tough to control, which is Taira's game. He needs to control you. Very, very tough to submit and very good cardio, you know, which it's all what you need to beat Tatsuro Taira. On top of that, as I said, massive step up in competition. And boys, that was a close fight. You know, arguably that was a draw. Tatsuro Taira should have got a 10-8 there. I don't know why he didn't get a 10-8. In my opinion, that round 2 was a 10-8 round. If you give Taira a 10-8 in round 2 or in round 4, then we're talking about a draw. But on the same token, Brandon Royval, he done a lot of damage in round 3 and he could have got a 10-8 in that round as well, though Taira kind of clawed the round back at the end and avoided a 10-8. So yeah, it was a crazy fight, a great fight. But I don't think a draw is out of the realm of possibility. But then Brandon Royval could have also got a 10-8, you know, arguably. So I think the right winner won. But I don't think that's a stain on Tatsuro Taira. I actually think it's a positive for him, and he's going to learn from that. The way he competed, we found out that the guy has got heart. We found out that the guy can still dominate rounds late, like round 4, a championship round. Pure domination from Taira, after getting dropped multiple times in round 3. You know, we learned a lot from Taira in that fight and in round 5 as well. You know, he competed well. So I think that it's a positive for him. I think it's going to do him wonders moving forward. And I think it could even do him wonders in this fight. We go back to a 3-round contest now, which arguably will be better for Taira just because he has less 5-round experience than Brandon Moreno. And Brandon Moreno has had a 5-round contest in each one of his 6 or 7 last fights or something crazy like that. So now he has to adjust to a 3-round contest. You know, maybe he's going to start off slow. I mean, at the end of the day, boys, if you've literally had the last 4 or 5 years of your life 7, 8 contests scheduled for a 5-round, 25-minute distance, then your approach may be slightly halted going into this 3-round contest fight, where Tatsuro's been training for 3 rounds outside of his last fight. The fight before the last 2 fights. He's been training for 3 rounds for his entire career, you know, so I think it probably benefits Taira a little bit. But at the end of the day, boys, it's going to be a very close fight. I mean, Taira's going to need to take Brandon Moreno down to finish him, he's going to need to take Brandon Moreno down to beat him, in my opinion. He's not going to win on the feet. Now, can he win moments and minutes on the feet? Yes. Is he going to win a 15-minute striking contest? No, I don't believe so. Brandon Moreno has very good boxing. He's very durable. I think more durable than Taira, in my opinion. And I think Brandon Moreno has better overall striking than Taira. I think Taira's striking is very good, underrated. He dropped Park twice in his last contest. He's knocked out Carlos Hernandez unconscious. No one else has done that, right? So I think he's got some power in that right hand. I think that he judges range quite well. But over a 15-minute striking contest, I mean, we saw what Royval did to him on the feet. At times he was butchering him, dropping him all over the place. And Royval is a good striker, but yeah, it's not the best look getting dropped and wobbled all over the place by Brandon Royval. I'll tell you that right now. It didn't happen to Brandon Moreno at all. So I'll tell you that again, right? And they fought twice. So for a lot longer as well. They fought for 5 rounds once, and then the second fight, I think, was the first round, right? I didn't watch that back for this one. But yeah, I favor Moreno on the feet, at least over 15 minutes. Over a few minutes, maybe, you know, Taira can hurt him or something, but over 15, I favor him. And then in the grappling, I do favor Taira because that's his game. Brandon Moreno is extremely hard to control. Basically, he never gets controlled unless it's by the highest level of grapplers in the division, which Tatsuro Taira is. The highest level of grapplers in the division. So again, it's not out of the realm of possibility. He gets some grappling going, but it's gonna be very hard. I think he probably needs a back take to win, whereas Moreno probably just needs to fight to start how all fights start, which is on the feet and defend takedowns. So I'm edging Moreno a little bit here, but I also like that Tatsuro Taira took that L in a very close fight. I like that he's only 25, so he's going to be improving. Brandon Moreno, a couple of fights ago, people were thinking he might be washed. And yeah, he's looked good against Amir Albazi, but that's a different level than someone like Tatsuro Taira. Yes, he looked good in his last fight against Steve Erceg, but we have maybe now come to see that Steve Erceg isn't maybe what we once thought, you know, having a close fight against Ode Osborne and making some poor fight IQ decisions there. An interesting tidbit that I have found during my research for this fight is where Moreno is currently training in Las Vegas. So he's training at a gym called FTCC, which is a high-level grappling gym. And he's actually getting rounds in with one of the best grapplers on the planet, a grappler that is also similar weight as him in Maycee Musemi. We see a picture of those guys here and they've been rolling together, getting him rounds in. And let me tell you something now, if you got a Tatsuro Taira fight, you want to be training with Maycee Musemi, one of the best back takers in BJJ on the planet in 2025, and a very tricky style of grappler, which is exactly what Tatsuro Taira is. So Brandon Moreno is a smart guy. He knows the rounds he needs, and he couldn't have a better training partner than Maycee Musemi for this fight. Not only that, but we see him here defending all types of wrestling attacks in the Shark Tank. I mean, loads of people just trying to take Brandon down here. They obviously can't do it. So yeah, this guy knows the matchup he is in store for, and he's getting in all the necessary preparation, which is what I like to see. So it's a very tough fight. I think this is a split decision. You know, I think this fight's going to go to split decision or at least going to be a 2-1 type fight where one fighter wins 1 round, the other fighter wins 2 rounds, but it's very close. Either fighter could win any round. Maybe the scorecards are going to be split. Man, it's hard for me to pick these type of fights, boys. You know, because I make a YouTube channel, I always try to give an official pick at the end. But if you're in my elite zone, you know what we do. We make big, big money in the elite zone, not by giving out picks, by giving out very good bets, you know? So that's really all I care about, not so much the picks. But my official pick's going to be Brandon Moreno. I'm going to say that Brandon Moreno has better takedown defense than Brandon Royval, and Brandon Royval was still able to win that fight. Even if it was scheduled for the 3-round contest, he would have almost got a 3rd round finish. And I think he won round 1, although it was a close round. Taira dominated round 2, though. But I do think that Brandon Moreno has better takedown defense. So he's probably going to be able to avoid the positions that Royval wasn't able to avoid in round 2 and round 4. Personal opinion. It's not guaranteed to happen. On the night, Tatsuro Taira is good enough to take the back. But I do think Moreno probably is a harder stylistic matchup than Brandon Royval in a 3-round contest as well, because I think Royval probably has better cardio than Moreno, or at least pushes a higher pace. And then Moreno is just better on the feet, more technical. So yeah, I'm just going to, and he's got more experience and stuff. So I'm just going to call that he edges the fight. But man, if Tatsuro Taira wins, I'm not going to be shocked at all. And it's a very close fight. But yeah, Brandon Moreno is my official pick if you need one.
What's going on, lads? It's Black Friday weekend this weekend, and I'm coming here to give you the biggest discount I've ever done. If you go to my website, sublaunch.com/lucrativemma, and type in the coupon code Black Friday, all one word, you're going to get 50% off. I've never done any discount higher than 50%, so I'm doing a big thing for Black Friday here, boys. We have a massive UFC event this weekend, UFC 323, and then we have Manuel Cape versus Brandon Royval next week. You can get access to all of my picks for the rest of the year by going to sublaunch.com/lucrativemma and typing in the coupon code Black Friday. Peace out, boys. Let's get back to the fights.
All right, lads, as you know, I always put out early content for you because I know you love early content. So I'm recording this 1 week out from UFC 323, over 1 week out. So I have the luxury of going over last week's events results. Usually I can't do that because I record the video before the previous week's events results. But there is no event this week because the UFC has a break. So I can actually go over my last results, which I can't usually do. And boys, I am happy to say that we have officially gone over the 200 unit barrier for 2025. Now, if you don't know what a unit is, basically units are a standardized bet size that professional gamblers use to show you how much they have won in sports betting. The reason we use units is so you can judge fairly and accurately how much money we have actually won relative to your own bank balance and anybody else's. For example, if I win $1,000 on a play, right, you might look at that and go, wow, $1,000 is so much money. But that's a very small win to me. But you would never know that if I didn't use units, right? So I could flex $1,000 and everyone would think that was so amazing. But that's actually a small bet for me. So I didn't win much, but it looks like a lot to you if $1,000 is a lot to you. It basically puts everything on an even playing field. So you're not comparing bank balances, you're comparing units. You don't want to compare bank balances because anyone could be a multi-millionaire. It doesn't mean they're a good pro sports bettor, right? If Floyd Mayweather wins $1 million, does it mean he's the best sports bettor in the world? No, he probably just bet $1 million and won on a minus 110 plus 100 line, and he won $1 million. If he was using units, you would really be able to judge him. Now, this year, we have crossed over 200 units of profit for 2025. We are currently sitting at 210.142 units with over a 15% ROI in 2025, and it's only November at the time of me recording this video. Boys, most professional gamblers don't even hit 50 units in a year consistently. Over 200 units in a single year. It's not normal. It's not even good. It's insanity. It's insanity numbers. And I have done it while being third-party tracked. 99.9% of bettors, predictors, whatever you want to call it, in the industry are not tracked on a third-party independent website that tracks every single one of their bets, win or lose. I am, because I've got nothing to hide. And you go on that website now and you will see I've won over 200 units of profit in 2025. And this is off disciplined percentage strategic betting, not degenerate betting big parlays, hoping for a big win. When one cashes, now we win loads. We're not doing that, boys. We're betting according to my system. So I just wanted to come on here and celebrate that. I've been working towards it my entire life to hit 200 units in a year. It's crazy. It's crazy results, boys. The elite zones stay winning. Everyone in the elite zone is going crazy. Thank you to everybody in the elite zone for constantly posting 200 units. under all the comments and stuff like that. It really motivated me to hit that number. And we did it. So cheers, lads. Let's continue. And there's still events left in the year. We ain't going to stop at 210 units. Let's go for 250 units. That might be a bit too much, but fuck it. Who knows? We might be able to do it. Let's go for 250 units, or at least 225, boys. Let's push the boundaries like no other before. Boys, if you want all of my bets, if you want to be along for the ride to hit 250 units, then go to sublaunch.com/lucrativemma. The link is also in the bio, and join the 250 unit year goal that we have now set out for ourselves after hitting 200 units. Been a mental year, boys. And we're going to continue it. We ain't slowing down. But let's get into the next fight of the night. We have Henry Cejudo taking on Payton Talbott. Henry Cejudo coming back after this guy. I thought he's retired at least 2 times by now, but his record is 16 wins, 5 losses. Payton Talbott, on the other hand, 10 wins with only 1 highly publicized loss in the UFC to Raoni Barcelos. Currently, they have Payton Talbott as the -275 favorite, with the underdog price tag on Henry Cejudo coming back at +235. Shout out to the best fighter on the planet, Payton Talbott. He's going to go out there and break Henry Cejudo, in my opinion. I mean, Henry Cejudo has obviously retired before. He's come back after his retirement, fought admirably, but spending more time outside of the octagon, seemingly spending more time outside of training. He's got a lot of ventures outside of MMA, doing podcasting, a lot of content creation online. He's got his hands in a lot of pies, and I don't think MMA is his number one child, number one baby, number one passion at the moment, right? I'm almost certain of that. I mean, even look at his YouTube channel. The guy's got 213K subscribers. Henry, we're catching up to you, boy. I'm about to hit 20K, and then I'm coming for that 200K. You know that. I'll see you soon.
See you soon, boy.
But boys, the content game is a grind, and Henry Cejudo is making a bunch of content on his YouTube channel, and in multiple videos, he's titling them The Last Dance. Henry's wife speaks out, is this his final MMA fight? And even in those videos themselves, you can see Henry looking a little bit flabby, looking a little bit overweight, not what we're used to seeing back in those Neuroforce 1 days of Henry Cejudo. I mean, look at the difference in picture here to what we see today. So boys, basically what I'm trying to say is when I look at Henry's career, he is not fully locked in on MMA at all. He knows this is one of his last fights, if not his last fight. And that's a bad position to be in, coming up against someone like Payton Talbott, who's going to put relentless pressure and pace on you in the octagon. In my opinion, after this fight, he's going to retire. Unless he wins, then he'll probably call someone out. But if he loses, he's probably going to retire. And Payton's not the type of fighter you want to go in there against if you've got one fight out the door, which I think is clear to see that Henry has, right? Henry is a very good fighter, and he's still competing well to this day. He's still fast. He doesn't look 40 years of age. He's fighting Yudong Song in a fairly competitive fight. Like, he looks good in that fight, in my opinion, for his age. But he still lost that fight. He was down on the scorecards. It then got stopped because of an eye poke, and he lost via decision, right? So he was down on the scorecards. I don't think it would have got any better for him in round 4 and round 5. I feel like Song probably would have cracked him, maybe hurt him in those rounds. I don't think he would have finished him, but he probably would have kept on pouring on and won a wide decision against Henry. Henry was just a little bit out of touch in that fight. And at the end of the day, boys, you're talking, that's about 9 months ago now, 9-10 months ago. So I think he's going to be even more deteriorated after that fight. And Payton Talbott's not the type of fighter you want to go in there against deteriorated, like I said. I think Payton's relentless pressure that he brings to the cage is going to wear out Henry. Henry does not have the grappling skill to hold down and dominate Payton like Raoni Barcelos did. Raoni Barcelos. If we go back and we compare the grappling skills in their MMA fights of Raoni Barcelos and his top control versus Henry Cejudo, they are worlds apart. Back in the day, Henry Cejudo had better top control, but even then, it wasn't on the level of someone like Raoni Barcelos, a very high-level grappler. So I don't think Cejudo's going to be able to have the grappling threat or the grappling success that Raoni Barcelos did in that fight. On the takedowns, he's probably going to have some similar success outside of, I don't think he has the cardio of Barcelos, really. I don't think he does, not in this day and age. And I think Payton learned a lot from that fight against Raoni Barcelos. Just like Tatsuro Taira learned in his fight against Royval, I think Payton Talbott clearly learned in his fight against Barcelos. And I think he's going to come in here all guns blazing, and he might even get a finish. It's tough for me to predict a finish or decision because they're bantamweight. This is a step up in competition for Payton Talbott, no matter how old Henry is. Henry's a tough son of a gun. He rarely gets finished in MMA, especially in his recent career after he got finished against Mighty Mouse way back in the day. I mean, the guy is insanely durable. It's hard for me to outright predict the finish, but I think round 3 could be brutal. Round 2 and round 3 is really where Payton Talbott comes alive. And I wouldn't even be surprised to see him lose round 1 here, but dominate the rest of the fight, like he does in a lot of fights. Payton Talbott loses round 1 in like almost all of his fights, you know? Not all of his fights, but in a lot of his fights, a high percentage he loses round 1. That's why I think he's definitely a 5-round fighter. I can't wait to see him in 5 rounds, and I think he will get a 5-rounder after this performance here, especially if it's a standout performance. And I kind of think it will be. So yeah, round 1 will be close. Round 2 and round 3 is really where Payton will pull away. The body work will catch up to Henry. The knees up the middle are there. Payton Talbott has some of the best eyes in the game, not necessarily defensively because he doesn't mind to take one to give one, but his reaction timing offensively and his striking and his balance in there, his flow, his presence in the octagon, his mindset for the game, his pressure, physicality, and like I said, presence is maybe the best I've ever seen in the sport, at least top 10, you know, of all time. It reminds me of Conor McGregor to some degree, his presence in the cage, you know, and I really think that that's going to take its toll on Henry Cejudo as he goes into round 2 and round 3. I see a brutal round 3 here, round 3. I would say Payton Talbott via round 3 stoppage or decision is a good play. I'm not going to outright predict the finish or not, but I am going to outright predict Payton Talbott to get this fight done. In the next fight on the card, we have Jan Błachowicz taking on Bogdan Guskov. Błachowicz is coming into this fight with a veteran record, 29 wins, 11 losses, 1 draw. Guskov, on the other hand, 18 wins with only 3 losses. Currently, they have Jan Błachowicz as the -130 favorite with the underdog price tag on Bogdan Guskov coming back at +110. Yeah, this is a good fight, boys. We've got Jan Błachowicz, the Polish power, going up against Guskov, the what power? Where's Guskov from? Bogdan. Where's he from? Let's have a look together, boys. I don't actually know, you know. So, oh yeah, he's fighting out of Russia, but then he was born in Uzbekistan. So, yeah, I don't know, man. Whatever. The Uzbekistani Russian power. This is a good fight, boys. You know, I feel like if this fight was about 4 or 5 years ago, Jan Błachowicz would be lined a -250 favorite here because skill for skill, he completely dominates Bogdan Guskov. In my opinion, he's a better striker and a better grappler with better cardio, with better fight IQ. You know, I think the only thing I could say for sure that Guskov does better than Jan Błachowicz is hit harder, you know, and I don't even think it's like that much harder, but I definitely feel like he's got more knockout upside in general over the course of his career than someone like Jan Błachowicz, although, you know, Jan has some decent knockouts on his record, some notable names at least with Dominic Reyes and Luke Rockhold and people like that. But the fact of the matter is Jan is almost 43 years old, you know, which is a very old fighter. But when you're talking about the higher weight classes, the heavier weight classes and light heavyweight and heavyweight, the age doesn't matter as much. You know, so 43 at light heavyweight is only like 35 at lightweight or something like that. So yes, he's on the older side, but not too old where he can't compete. And we can clearly see that in his fights, in his recent fights against Carlos Ulberg and a while back now against Alex Pereira. So the Carlos Ulberg fight was back in March, right? So you're talking 8 months ago. Yeah, so 8 months ago, he takes Carlos Ulberg to a very, very close decision, scored a unanimous decision on a lot of people's scorecards. They scored the fight for Jan Błachowicz. In my opinion, Carlos won the fight, but it was very close. It was very tentative. You know, there wasn't too much to score, not too much going on. I think scoring it either way is fine. And we're talking about a guy who's fighting Alex Pereira for the title soon. He could be potentially the next champion in the division. And we're saying that Jan potentially beat him. If we go back and see his fight before that, in 2023, so a while back, against Alex Pereira, he loses that fight as well, this time via split decision, in a fight that, again, he arguably won, and one judge thought he did win. And the only reason he lost it was because he gassed out and lost it via optics in round 3, where he was looking like a drunk old man and couldn't really stand up straight. And Alex Pereira was just walking him down and looking a little bit better. And so he won the fight, right? But in round 1, Jan dominated Alex with takedowns, wrestling. He took his back. In another timeline, you are literally looking at Jan Błachowicz and saying that he has beat Carlos Ulberg, the future champion, right? And the current champion in his last 2 fights. And that's not a crazy take. That's not like it could never have happened. The fights were split decision fights, man. He could have easily got those bounces. The fight before that, he takes Magomed Ankalaev to a split decision draw, by the way, who is the last light heavyweight champion. He's fought 3, in my opinion, light heavyweight champion in his last 3 fights, because I really think Allberg will become champion one day. Arguably, he beat all of them. So yes, okay, you can look at it and go, he's an old guy, but he's been competing with the best. Even at 40, 41, and 42 years of age, he's been competing with the very best and arguably winning those fights. So until I see him fall off a cliff, I can't project it to happen. Now, am I going to say that because he's almost 43, 24th of February next year, he will be 43, am I going to cap in his age? Am I going to say that he's not going to be the man he once was? Yes, I am. Like, I'm going to give him about 5%. So like if I'm saying he's going to win the fight 60% of the time, because of his age, I'll move it down to 55% or something like that, right? But I'm not going to go in there and say he's just going to look terrible, because he's never done it. He's never looked terrible. He's never looked terrible once in his career, outside of maybe the Glover fight. That was kind of embarrassing. But that's a completely different stylistic matchup, you know? A few things I've noticed during my research for this fight, boys, is that Jan has been preparing for this fight at massive altitude in the Polish mountains of Zakopane. So Zakopane has a huge high altitude of 7,500 feet, which is obviously going to be good for Jan and good for his cardio. Even on his Instagram, he is saying his camp in Zakopane was good. The mountains make him more focused, calm, and stronger. Battle is coming. So he's ready for this one, man. Legendary Polish power. Guskov is not coming into this fight ill-prepared, though. He's training at Gore MMA, which is the fight camp that he is listed out on Tapology, and he has some solid heavyweights to train with, like Sergey Pavlovich and Walter Walker over there. So the guy's going to come in ready, just like Jan. I know that for a fact. And it's going to be a great fight. If I look at the skill for skill stylistics in this fight, Jan is such a good striker, man. He's so underrated. You know, very good leg kicks. His legs are made of steel, and he can check your leg kicks and hurt you more than you hurt him by hitting his legs. I think he can chew up Bogdan's leg here. I don't think they're conditioned the same, and I don't think they have the same skill on the leg kick. I've seen Bogdan taken down and grapple fucked by strikers. You know, Volkan did submit him, a pure striker almost. Ryan Spann, yes, decent grappler, but dominated him from top position at times. I feel like Jan can have success on the mat as well. You know, I think Jan can take him down. Jan's not very good if you take him down, but he can take you down and, you know, win rounds and minutes from top position, as we've seen in his fights against Israel Adesanya, Alex Pereira. He's a very smart fighter. In those fights, he went in there with a grappling game plan because he knew he was taking on better strikers than him, and he still competed very well in the striking and won moments and minutes. So it's like, Jan is an elite fighter at the end of the day, and I have to pick Jan in this one. I understand Bogdan can go in there and crack him, and yes, I could now spend 5 to 10 minutes speaking about Bogdan's skill set and how good he is, but I don't want this video to be 2-3 hours. I'm just going to give you my overall take, and my overall take is that Jan is not done yet. He may be done at some point. Maybe it's this fight. At some point, he's going to fall off a cliff. He's probably not going to be doing this at 45, 46. So he is in the last 1 to 2 years. But just with his recent performances against the best fighters in the entire division in 2025 and 2023, I cannot go out there and rule him out of this fight. I have to pick him. He's way better in basically every facet of MMA. And while Bogdan is on a good run at the moment, and I do believe he has the chance to ice Jan Błachowicz, if he doesn't do that, I think he's in for a rude awakening here. So I'm going to pick Jan to bounce back, taking a big step down in competition and defeat Bogdan Guskov here, probably via decision. The next fight on the card is Grant Dawson taking on Manuel Torres. Grant Dawson coming into this fight, record of 23 wins, 2 losses, 1 draw. Manuel Torres, on the other hand, 16 wins with only 3 losses. Currently, they have Grant Dawson, the big favorite, minus 190. With the underdog price tag on Manuel Torres coming back at plus 165. So first things first, we're going to be rooting for Grant Dawson on this podcast. Grant Dawson is a good friend of Chris Duncan, who's also fighting on this card, who is a friend of mine. So I'm going to be supporting him. So by extension, we're going to be supporting Grant Dawson. So I want you to be commenting down below, Grant Dawson. No fucking slander on my man, Grant Dawson. Great fighter, man. Great fighter at the end of the day. If we look at his UFC record, 1 lone loss in his entire UFC career, and it's a long career for many years, against Bobby Green, in a fight that he got slumped in about a minute. Like, it was kind of like a random knockout. Green doesn't really do that to anyone. I don't think that is a high probability outcome. You know, I played the fight doesn't go to decision there at minus 200, and we cashed in 60 seconds. I was definitely thinking that it would be Grant Dawson finishing Bobby Green, and if they run that fight 10 times, I feel like Grant Dawson finishes him like 8 and maybe gets finished once. And that's the one that we saw on that night. That's how you know MMA bet and MMA in general is never always what it seems. You know, don't get too high off your wins or losses because anything can happen in this game, you know? And I think that Grant Dawson has shown a shaky chin at times. You know, he got hurt badly by Ricky Glenn back in the day. And obviously what happened with Bobby Green happened there. So it's a bit of a worry going into this matchup against a power puncher and a very dangerous fast starter like Manuel Torres. But he has the wrestling to dominate this fight as well. And I kind of feel like this fight is a fight where if Grant gets his game going, it's going to snowball in like every fight ever. You kind of need to catch Grant early or maybe like randomly, you know, on the feet after a stand-up or in an exchange or something like that. If he starts to take you down, he's just going to wear you out and rinse and repeat, kind of similar to Pat Sabatini. You know, if he takes you down, you're kind of like Sean Brady. You need to catch these guys early. If you don't, their game just snowballs because that's the type of grapplers they are. Grant Dawson, one of the best back takers in the sport. You know, the way he takes you down, body lock, throws you down and takes the back, it's beautiful. It honestly is. And it's very high level in MMA. If other fighters could start to implement that in MMA, they'd start winning a lot more fights. Like it's just a very great technique to have in terms of winning MMA fights. Good wrestling and amazing back take. And if you can pair them together, I mean, you're going to be Grant Dawson with one loss in like 20 fights. So for those of you who don't know, Grant Dawson and Chris Duncan both train together out there at ATT in America. And they're both actually fighting very similar opponents on the exact same fight card. So they're in fight camp together. They're training together every day, sparring together every day. And we know this from the source. Chris tells us this himself. And he also tells us, because he came on a podcast a couple of weeks ago, and he told us that they're having conversations about themselves fighting almost the same style of opponent. So Grant Dawson facing Manuel Torres, who's a very fast starter. And if he doesn't finish you in round 1, he kind of capitulates and loses. And the same can be said about Chris Duncan's opponent, who we're going to speak about in a minute, Terrance McKinney, who, you know, very fast starter, but if he doesn't finish you in round 1, he capitulates. So I think that's going to be very, very good for Grant and Chris because they can both game plan together. And not only that, but Chris Duncan has already fought Manuel Torres before. So that's going to be more beneficial to Grant Dawson because they can speak about, you know, how Chris prepared for that fight, what went right, what went wrong, the things they learned in the fight, the things they learned during the fight preparation, all of that stuff. So I think it's a big benefit, honestly, them two training together for this exact card. And they're fighting, I believe, at the moment, typology order, one fight after each other. So I think that's going to help Grant, and I think that's going to help Chris. And honestly, I got Grant in this matchup pretty convincingly. Now, as I said, going up against a dangerous fighter in Manuel Torres, you always have to worry. You know, I was pretty confident Drew Dober would beat Manuel Torres, and I look like an idiot in that one, boys. And as I always say, I'm coming on it every single week, giving out picks, giving out predictions. I know I'm not going to win every bet. I know I'm not going to win every week or even every month. And I'm going to look like an idiot sometimes, right? But when you've got a fighter who really basically loses if he doesn't win in the first few minutes or the first round, I'm usually going to be confident fading that opponent if I've got a good fighter in front of him. I felt Dober was good enough. He wasn't on the night. It is what it is. I think now we see Dober's actually quite washed. And I wasn't sure of that before the fight, right? And now I'm fairly sure of it. I don't think Grant's washed. You know, Grant's in his prime, in my opinion. He still can make a run. I mean, if you ain't catching that guy early, like the guy's going to make a run in the division, you know? And outside of that Bobby Green fight, if he didn't get knocked down in that Bobby Green fight, which like I said, is such a low percentage outcome, who knows where he would be right now? The guy could be on the cusp of a title shot. And I truly mean that. He's got one loss in the UFC, guys. He's 11-1-1, right? And remove the draw. He's 11 wins and 1 loss in the UFC. Like, that's an insane record. That's a title shot record, you know? Just so happens that a couple of fights ago, he did get knocked out, so it kind of put him down the ranks again. But man, if he gets a win over Manuel Torres here, then he's going to get a top 15, top 10 fighter in his next fight. If he wins that fight, you're talking top 5, and then he's in for a title shot. So I think Grant Dawson's a very high-level fighter. Manuel Torres has been submitted on the regional scene, right? By a knee bar and a heel hook. I don't think his grappling is up to par. I really don't. Kind of an embarrassing loss to Ignacio Bahamondes, honestly. Kind of exposed him in that fight. Exposed his lack of technicality. And I think that fight showed us that if he gets in there with someone with higher fight IQ, a little bit smarter, understands range, understands how to set up a strike or a wrestling entry like Grant Dawson does, he can be outskilled and outsmarted. And that's exactly what I see Grant doing. So look, I feel like Manuel Torres round 1 prop Manuel Torres inside the distance, the under 1.5 rounds, but more specifically the under 2.5, or the fight doesn't go to decision, and Grant Dawson moneyline and inside the distance are all positive plus EV plays here. If you don't know what plus EV means, it basically means bets that you need to be making to earn a profit long term. So I feel like all of those props are, going to be decent bets, but my full outright prediction will be Grant Dawson to get this one done inside the distance with a wrestling or grappling attack. All right, boys, now it's time for lucrative Wheel of Fortune, where I give you a chance to win 1 month free to the lucrative MMA Elite Zone. The Elite Zone is where I give you my official bets, not picks. No one cares about picks, boys. Official bets for all of the fight cards, and I bring you on board to win 200 units with me and everyone in my VIP like we have done this year. All you need to do to be in with a chance to win is comment a good comment down below, and you're going to be automatically put into next week's draw. So let's spin this week's wheel. Everyone who commented last week is put into this wheel, and let's see who wins, boys. Boom, we're spinning now. All right, here we go, boys. We're spinning. Man, there is so many comments. We're going to need 2 wheels soon. We're going to need 2 wheels. All right, slowing down, boys. Here we go. Enrico, 877 or whatever that says there. I can't see it. Ulrico, congratulations. You just won yourself 1 month free to lucrative MMA Elite Zone. Congratulations on the money that you're about to win for this week's card and next week's card, and forever if you decide to stay after the 1 month. Check the description down below to find out how to claim your 1 month free. And boys, leave a comment down below if you want to be put into next week's draw. If you didn't win this week, don't worry. You can still sign up if you go to sublaunch.com/lucrative MMA. You get access to everything, boys. My VIP group chat, all of my bets, my long shot props, my long shot parlays, everything I use to make money betting on MMA, you get access to it, all including my specific bankroll staking structure, which is going to help you grow your bankroll over time and minimize losses. Lads, I'm also giving out 2 free parlays in my Telegram, which you can join for free. Again, down below, the link to join my Telegram is there. I'm going to give you 2 free parlays. For everybody in my Telegram, which is free to join, I'm going to give you 2 parlays. I've only done this once, right? And I told you all to join. And here are the 2 free parlays. They cashed easily, both plus money. We had Carlos Prates parlayed with Fatima Klein at odds of plus 106. Fatima Klein dominated Angela Hill and Prates got a knockout. I gave you that for free for everyone in my Telegram. I also did an underdog parlay, another one, Valentina Shevchenko and Pat Sabatini, who both dominated their fights. Odds of plus 255 I gave you for free. Boys, this week, I got 2 free parlays again for you. You can check them for free. The link is down below. Next fight of the night is Terrance McKinney versus Chris Duncan. Terrance McKinney coming into this fight with a record of 17 wins, 7 losses. Chris Duncan, on the other hand, 14 wins with only 2 losses. Chris Duncan sitting at the minus 200 favorite with the underdog price tag on Terrance McKinney coming back at plus 170. It's kind of funny, boys. I mentioned that Terrance McKinney and Manuel Torres are very similar, and Chris Duncan and Grant Dawson have a similar matchup, and they're both sitting at basically the exact same odds. Chris Duncan minus 200, Grant Dawson minus 190. I'm sure there's minus 200s for both of them on some bookmakers out there. And my breakdown's going to be very similar to the last fight. Now, I kind of feel like Terrance McKinney poses more of a threat to Chris Duncan than Manuel Torres does to Grant Dawson. And that's just stylistically, because I think Grant Dawson's wrestling entries and his game is more suited to shut someone down than Chris's game. Chris will stand there with Terrance McKinney. He won't be afraid to trade, whereas Grant Dawson, I'm not saying he's afraid to trade, but he never really does. He basically shoots for that ankle immediately and goes for that back take. He mitigates risk more than Chris. That's just his fight style. There's pros and cons to both fight styles. So being that Chris's style is to go in there, sometimes swang and bang, and even in fights that he doesn't need to, like the 3rd round against Mateusz Rebecki, go out there and try and get fired tonight, stuff like that, it's going to put him in more danger inherently, right? It will also lead him to get more finishes, more performance of the night, fight of the night bonuses and stuff, but it will put him into more danger. And against Terrance McKinney, you don't necessarily want to be doing that because Terrance McKinney holds very special athleticism in round 1. Not only in the striking, but also in the grappling. I kind of feel Terrance McKinney is going to go out there and try and grapple Chris Duncan here. Now, I don't really know if that's the case. Terrance seems to just do what he feels on the day. But I think he knows that Chris Duncan is a very strong, tough guy. He's not just going to be knocked out from one shot. He ain't going to quit on himself. So I feel like Terrance might try to take him down and submit him. At the end of the day, the only time we've seen Chris finished inside of the octagon, outside of Contender Series fights, not under the UFC banner, or it's not an official UFC fight, was by Manuel Torres.
with a rear naked choke. So I kind of feel like he's going to try and do something similar here. Terrance seems to fight with a lot of nervous energy. And Chris said that himself on the podcast when he came on podcast a couple of weeks ago. And I see the same thing where he fights with some nervous energy. I don't necessarily know if he likes to be in there swinging and banging. When he gets hit a couple of times, he seems to, I don't want to say look for the door, but maybe resort to a different game plan, shoot for the leg, some desperate takedowns at times. Whereas Chris, he feels at home in there. He wants to be in there. So being that that's the case, I kind of feel like Terrance is going to try and grapple Chris here. But let me tell you something now, man. If you're not jumping on a back very quickly, like Manuel Torres, and sinking in a rear naked choke almost immediately, you ain't grappling Chris Duncan, man. The physicality of the guy is insane. He's got like a middleweight, welterweight physicality at lightweight. For Terrance McKinney to win this fight via grappling, he needs to take him down and jump on a back or a neck or cinch in a choke very quickly. I don't think he's going to be, taking him down, keeping him, holding him down. Maybe Chris gets up, taking him down again. I don't think that's going to be the case, man. Manuel Torres, when he got the rear naked choke against Chris, he put his all into that takedown, right? He literally put his whole strength and athleticism and physicality into that takedown and then jumped on the back quickly. Shit happens. It's MMA, And I think Terrance needs to do that early in the grappling against Chris or catch him with a big shot. Outside of that, Chris is a massive favorite. I mean, if this fight gets into round 2, you're talking Chris being a -4, -500 favorite on the live lines, So I'm picking Chris all day, as if I wasn't going to pick Chris, Obviously, there's some bias in this pick, boys. So I always tell you my biases. I'm not out here not telling you my biases. I tell you my bias all the time. I do think that round 1's going to be dangerous for Chris, as it always is, but Chris can also finish him in round 1. The difference is Chris can finish him in round 2 and round 3, and I don't think McKinney can do that. And Chris can win a decision. I don't really think McKinney can do that either. So, I got Chris all day here, boys. I mean, there's not too much to say about it. I think Chris is improving every single day. I think being there with Grant Dawson, facing a similar guy to Manuel Torres that he faced before, like I said, is going to help him in camp. Yeah, like I said, I've seen Chris fight live, and the physicality that he has in the grappling and the grappling defense is like a brick, man. You can't move him. Out there in ATT, Chris is sparring with JJ Wilson, one of the best jiu-jitsu backtakers, grapplers in the entire game, as well as Renato Moicano, one of the best backtakers in the entire game, as well as Grant Dawson, one of the best backtakers in the entire game. When he came on my podcast, he said that his preparation is going well. He also said that he's drilling the backtake defense every single day, basically. And people like Grant Dawson and Moicano are starting on his back. So at the end of the day, man, it's going to be tough for me to see Terrance McKinney get that submission from that back take. And if it's on the feet, I got to favor Chris for sure. Yes, McKinney can land anything at any time. And I kind of feel like he will land something big on Chris here because that's kind of Chris's style. He will swing, but over the course of 5, 10, 15 minutes, it's Chris all day for me. So yeah, Chris inside the distance, Chris round 1, Chris round 2, Chris KO. I lean more to a KO than the submission, but the guillotine is live at all times. All of those props will be something I'll be looking to play. I'll probably smash the under 1.5 here because I think Chris is going to go for him early. The fight doesn't go to decision. Like all of these props are probably going to be plus EV, although they're probably going to be juiced as well. So yeah, my prediction, Chris Duncan inside the distance. If you couldn't have guessed it by now. The next fight on the card is Maycee Barber taking on Karine Silva. Maycee Barber, 14 wins, 2 losses. Karine Silva coming into this fight with a record of 19 wins, 5 losses. Kind of interesting that Karine Silva has a lot more fights than Maycee Barber. Currently, they have Maycee Barber as the -155 favorite with the underdog price tag on Karine Silva coming back at +135. So, boys, first things first, man, we need to speak about Maycee Barber's last fight or supposed last fight. She was supposed to fight Erin Blanchfield, right, in a fight where she was a big underdog, +200 underdog. And I had some money on her there because I thought it was a bit of a wide line. And yeah, I just thought she would compete well over 5 rounds, right? And that fight never went through. On the fight night, she was warming up and the fight got pulled, right? Now, I've tried to find info during my research on why that fight got pulled. I've listened to her interview with Maycee Barber, and the stuff she says in that interview is absolutely alarming. So she actually thought that she fought. Right? She thought that she fought on that night against Erin Blanchfield. She basically woke up in a hospital that night and thought she had fought against Erin Blanchfield. She thought she was in a hospital after a fight, but she didn't even compete, right? So that's how effed up she was. Now, she doesn't even go outright and say the issue that she had on fight night. I don't know why, if she's keeping it to herself or whatnot, but she had some serious issues, boys. Some really bad issues. If you remember, she came in slightly overweight for that contest. So I think it's related to the weight cut. I'm almost certain it's related to the weight cut, but she hasn't come out right and say exactly what was wrong with her. So apparently, according to her, and this is what she says verbatim, right? She's training before the fight. She's going to walk out. She's warming up in the back. Next thing you know, she wakes up in a hospital. So I don't know if she must have passed out. They put her in an ambulance, sent her to the hospital. She wakes up thinking, am I in here because of the fight? You know, how did the fight go? All of that. And they're like, no, you didn't even fight. We took you to the hospital before the fight started when you was warming up. So she's gone through some serious shit, boys. I don't see how she's going to come into this fight 100%. There's almost no way. You know, like I cap this in pretty big in my capping, you know. Usually when fighters, they get injuries and maybe they've gone through some bad weight cuts or whatnot, I won't cap it in as much as I have here just because of the severity of what happened to Maycee on the scales that day and what happened to her the day after. So I wanted to give you guys that piece of information before we get into the stylistic nature of the fight. But let's speak about the fight regardless of the illness or issues, medical issues that Maycee has, right? I think it's a good fight for Karine Silva early because Karine is very physical. And I think there's no doubt in my mind that she's going to be able to take Maycee Barber down. I mean, Maycee gets taken down by almost everyone these days. I mean, let's go back and look at her last fights, boys. Let's have a look together. So we see Caitlin Chikagan, basically a pure striker, taking her down once in that fight, right? Amanda Ribas getting 2 takedowns off her. Andrea Lee, 5 takedowns in a fight that she arguably lost against a girl who's completely washed at that point, even in 2023. Jessica, I even get to take down Montana De La Rosa, Miranda Maverick. Boys, at this point in time, right, we are on a 6-fight streak. In her last 6 fights, she's been taken down at least once. Then we go, and she's won all those fights, and it's funny because then we go to the Alexa Grasso fight, which she lost. She didn't get taken down in that one. But that's Alexa Grasso, who's basically a pure boxer. Then you go before that as the Roxanne Modafferi fight back in 2020. I mean, her knee popped in that one. I don't even want to talk about it. But you get what I'm trying to say, boys. She gets taken down in almost all of her fights. And she gets controlled for a long period in a lot of those fights as well. Now, she's very tough, amazing cardio, pretty physical. She never gets dominated on the ground, right? But she's given up control time and takedowns in basically all of these fights. Andrea Lee is getting 5 minutes of control time against her. Amanda Ribas took her down and controlled her for a period in that first round as well. And even in the Jessica Eye fight, she gets controlled for 8 minutes, guys. Now, yes, this is up against the cage as well as on the ground, but you get what I'm trying to say. Like, this is her issue in MMA. It's basically getting taken down. Karine Silva is extremely physical early, pretty big for the weight class herself. I think she's going to have no issue taking Maycee Barber down early. Now, the issue I see with her is she gets tired, she gasses out. And Maycee Barber does the opposite. She gets more aggressive as the fight goes on. She gets better as the fight goes on. Her cardio is a very, very high level in the division, much better than Karine Silva. So if Karine don't finish her in the first round or two, she's basically going to have to survive for round 3. Do I think she can do it? Yes. At the end of the day, it's women's MMA. There's not that many finishes. I do think she'll be able to survive, but it's going to be a sketchy round 3. But the thing is, boys, we might not even get there. Karine Silva is a legit black belt on the ground. And I don't think Maycee Barber is that good at jiu-jitsu. I think she's tough. I think she doesn't give up. I think she's got good cardio, physical to some degree, even though she gets taken down all the time. But I don't think she's got great jiu-jitsu, you know, at all, really, to be honest. So I think Karine Silva can get a submission here. And it's going to be a massive odds, right? It's probably going to be about 500, 600, 700 odds. Submission round 1, round 2 is probably going to be about 1,500 plus 2,000. So I really think we're live for a Karine Silva submission here. And if not, then she can definitely take her down rounds 1 and round 2 and survive round 3. So I got Karine Silva as the underdog here. Plus 135 is good odds to me. I feel like this should be a pick, and if not Karine Silva, slight favorite, especially capping in this Maycee Barber illness, which I really think is important. I think the finish is even more likely capping in that illness. So while I'm not outright predicting a finish, I'm just going to say that Karine Silva is the side here, and she is my official prediction for this fight. The next fight tonight, we have Fares Ziam taking on Nazim Sadykhov. Ziam coming into this fight, a record of 17 wins, 4 losses. Sadykhov, on the other hand, 11 wins, 1 draw and 1 loss. That draw against Slava, absolute banger. Go back and watch that if you want some fun. Very closely lined fight. Fares Ziam, currently the minus 130 favorite, with the underdog price tag on Nazim Sadykhov coming back at plus 110. Boys, I'm not going to lie, this is a tough fight for me to call. I don't have a strong read on it. I've got a strong read on a lot of fights in this fight card, and I've given you my take on a lot of those. But this one's a tough fight to call, man, because Nazim Sadykhov forces finishes, forces action, and puts himself in the firing line to get his own finish. Fares Ziam almost does the opposite, right? He likes to fight on the outside, grapple to avoid exchanges, outside kickbox to avoid exchanges, and he's very good at it. So I don't really know who's going to get their game off. If Sadykhov's able to force the pace and pressure, I think he's going to thrive in that environment. If Ziam is able to grapple him, take him down, maybe stay on the outside and use his range and superior technicality in the striking and fight IQ, then I think he's going to win. You know, I don't really know who's going to get their game off. Looking at the first round of that Ismail Bonfim fight, it tells me that Nazim can be outmaneuvered, he can be out-volumed and he can be outsmarted. Now, even in that fight, though, he did land a killer blow. But as we've seen in Ismail Bonfim's entire career now, he kind of quits when the going gets tough. He doesn't really want to be in there. We saw that against Chris Padilla. We definitely saw that against Nazim Sadykhov and somewhat to a lesser degree against Benoit Saint-Denis. So, if he landed that kick on Fares Ziam, would Fares Ziam still be there round 2 and round 3? I believe he would, And on top of that, we take a step back and we look at Nazim's career. The Ismail Bonfim fight, he landed a good shot, but again, there's some asterisks there. He was getting handedly outsmarted on the feet. We look at the Nicolas Motta fight. He almost got finished in that fight, was hurt badly, but he's so tough, was able to land the finish of his own. We look at the Evan Elder fight, right? Go back in the day and look at his Evan Elder performance. He's 2-0 down on all judges' scorecards and gets a doctor stoppage in round 3. The Vishlav Borshev fight, he loses round 1 and round 3 unanimously, lands a knockout blow in round 2 to avoid the loss, and it ended up being a draw. So kind of feel like there's been a lot of luck in Nazim's career. And if you run back those fights, he's not going to win all of them like he did. He's probably going to have a lot more losses on his record than he does now. Maybe even 3 or 4 losses or at least not 3 or 4 wins. But there is also something to be said about his will to win. Something to be said about him never quitting on himself, never giving up, always forcing exchanges, And to be honest, man, I do feel like some of those fights, even though he did get a little bit lucky with the doctor stoppage, a little bit lucky with the draw, at the end of the day, he still landed that shot, to cut his opponents open. He still almost finished Slava in round 2, so it could have been a finish on another day as well. So I want to give him some credit, but yeah, I just feel like he's a hard fighter to read, and that's why I don't have a strong read on this one. I'm going to end up picking Fares Ziam here. If you zoom out on Fares Ziam's career, I don't think it's been the best either, right? Just like we did against Nazim Sadykhov, I feel like he's fought some opponents who were a little bit washed. In Mike Davis, I think that's been proven now. Matt Frivola, in his last fight, I think we saw that as well. So, maybe his record isn't as good as it maybe once seemed, but I still think he's a solid fighter. I'm going to say that Ziam's durable enough and smart enough to outmaneuver Sadykhov's big moment winning strikes or attacks that have won him a lot of these fights. And so I'm going to say Ziam is able to get the decision win here, but I'm not confident in that prediction. And I wouldn't be playing Ziam at such a close price tag. I'd probably need plus money on either fighter to play them. But for me, I'm just going to watch this one as a fan. So yeah, Fares Ziam via decision is my official pick. In the next fight on the card, we have Marvin Vettori taking on Bruno Ferreira. Vettori coming into this fight with a record of 19 wins, 8 losses, 1 draw. Bruno Ferreira, on the other hand, 14 wins, just 2 losses. Currently, they have Marvin Vettori, the minus 115 favorite, with the underdog price tag on Bruno Ferreira coming back at minus 105. So I feel like if this fight, again, like the Yan fight, if this fight was 4 or 5 years ago, Vettori's minus 250 favorite here, but it's not 4 or 5 years ago. It is 2025. And Vettori has looked washed recently. I cannot lie. I thought he would put up a much better performance against Brendan Allen in his last fight. Instead, he made Brendan Allen look like a very, very high-level striker, to which I don't think he is that good of what he looked against Marvin. So I think we have to cap that in a lot in this fight, right? The fact that Marvin is probably not at 100%. Does he need to be at 100% to beat Bruno Ferreira? Probably not, but he probably needs to be at least 70, 80, and I don't even know if he's there, to be honest. It's a big ask. Bruno Ferreira has a lot of power. And Marvin Vettori, although he has showed a great chin and probably one of the best chins in UFC history, the fact that we know he has the best chin in UFC history means he's been punched in the head a lot. And if you get punched in the head for a long enough time, eventually your chin's going to go. And we've seen it against Jared Cannonier. We've even seen him get rocked against Brendan Allen in his last fight, like I said, who doesn't really rock anybody. And I think at some point that chin is going to crack. I never like to bet on chins cracking when they've literally been the best chin, like I said, maybe even in UFC history, up there with the likes of, who's that heavyweight fellow who just took bombs off Derek Lewis and that fellow who got stabbed, the Bulgarian. Anyway, him. Marvin Vettori is on the same level as him, same level as Max Holloway. But as we've seen in Max Holloway, chins go at some point for everybody. And although I really think that a lot of the betting community overrates chins going and ends up betting on a fighter to get finished 5 times, in a row, and they lose every fight except for maybe the last one. And then they cheer like, yeah, look, I told you his chin would go. But bearing in mind, they've lost their last 4 bets trying to fade their chin. I think that is a big thing in the bet and MMA community. But I haven't done that against Vettori, right? I've not ever bet on him to get finished. This might be the one that I do it. This might be the first one I've ever done it. People was betting on Max Holloway to get finished for years. People was betting on, people have been betting on Marvin Vettori to get finished for a long time, right? Max Holloway was a big one. I remember that. I've never done it. But I honestly feel like at this stage of his career, seeing what I've seen in the Jared Cannonier fight and some subsequent fights, it could be the one here. Am I outright predicting it? I don't really know. It's tough for me to say. But if the odds are good enough, I don't need to outright predict it to bet it. As I always say, it's not about betting on what you think is going to happen. It's not about your picks. It's about where the value lies. And if Bruno Ferreira is an underdog like he is right now, his KO prop might be, plus 250 or something. That might be enough for me to play it. So, yeah, I mean, good fight, tough fight to call. Bruno Ferreira has some decent jiu-jitsu. I don't think Vettori is just going to be able to take him down and lay and pray on him. I really don't. And if Vettori's pressuring and out-voluming him, he's just going to be putting himself in danger to get cracked with a big shot. So I kind of like Bruno Ferreira in this fight. I feel like with the decreased durability that he's shown in recent years, even if his chin holds up, he's still going to be losing big moments. Yeah, he might not get knocked out officially, but he's going to be wobbled. He's going to be hurt. Maybe he gets dropped to a knee. And that's going to lose you the whole round, And someone like Bruno Ferreira, why can't he jump on a choke after he hurt you? Or why can't he, at least win the round from that? So yeah, I got Bruno Ferreira here, man. I just think it's the wrong time for Marvin Vettori. And I'm not going to pick between a KO or a decision. If you put a gun to my head, I'd say KO. But yeah, Bruno Ferreira is my pick. In the next fight of the night, we have Edson Barbosa taking on Jalen Turner. Edson Barbosa coming into this fight with a record of 24 wins, 13 losses. Jalen Turner coming back from retirement with a record of 14 wins and 9 losses. Jalen Turner, a massive favorite, minus 255 odds, with the underdog price tag on Edson Barbosa coming back at plus 215. So boys, the big thing we need to speak about in this fight is obviously Jalen Turner coming back from retirement, right? So he's only a young guy, I think about 30 years old off the top of my head. I haven't checked right now. So for him to retire, it was a little bit out of character. But Jalen Turner has always struggled with the mental side of the game, which is, the most important side of the game at the end of the day. If your mental's not there, doesn't matter how good you are physically. So him coming back from retirement is obviously a worry if you're back in Jalen Turner, because how is he mentally going into this fight? I've seen on his Instagram, the guy's posting about he's found Jesus Christ and found God. So I don't know how you're going to take that. On one hand, you could look at it and go like, maybe he's not all in on fighting. He's talking about God more now. It's not what I like to see. But on the other hand, he already retired when he didn't find God. So maybe now finding God gives him strength, gives him something more to fight for. I honestly think for him specifically, it's probably a little bit more beneficial. Whereas if someone else randomly came out of it, I would probably say it's more of a negative. At the end of the day, it's case-by-case basis, boys. And you can never blanket statement anything in MMA betting or in life. For Jalen Turner, I'd say it's a positive. He's taken on Edson Barbosa, who is completely washed, in my opinion. So we got a guy coming back from retirement fighting a guy who's old and washed. So it's not a fight that I want to get involved in usually, but maybe there's some props sticking out. Honestly, looking at this fight, first thing that I think of is Jalen Turner's going to wipe him out, man. Jalen Turner's going to wipe him out early. He's so dangerous. He's so long. He's so vicious. He hurts everybody. He honestly could be a top 5, top 10 fighter if his mental was right from a young age. He never reached those heights. I don't think he ever will at this point in his career. But you never know, man. If his mental is on the right side now and he gets a good finish, maybe he propels on. He's only 30. It's not old, So I think he finishes Edson Barbosa in this one. Stylistically, it's an easy fight for him at the end of the day because Edson's not going to grapple him and Edson's not really durable. And yes, he's not really been finished in his recent career, but he should have been finished multiple times and he hasn't been fighting high-level finishers. I mean, you look at his recent career, he fought Drakkar close. I mean, Drakkar's not a finisher, and that was a very close fight. And he got wobbled and hurt in that fight as well. I was actually watched that live in Chicago. And I could not believe the amount of times Edson was looking wobbly and just like an old man in that fight. It was a terrible look. The fight before that, he fights Lerone Murphy. He gets wobbled badly in that fight multiple times. Lerone Murphy, a bit of an anti-finisher. I also saw him live in Chicago. A couple of fights after that, get a brutal knockout. But that was a random spinning elbow, Outside of that, he ain't really finishing anyone. So, or a big knee or something against Amir Khani. So again, he's not really fighting a dangerous fighter. Before that, he fights Sadiq Youssef in a fight where he gets dropped badly in the early rounds and Sadiq gasses out completely. So he could have been finishing that fight as well. Fight before that, Billy Quarantino, and I'm going to stop in a minute, but Billy Quarantino was literally looking like he's going to melt him. He's going to finish him within 2-3 minutes and he lands a crazy Hail Mary knee to get the knockout. So I think a lot of these fights he could have been finished, and if they run them again, he would have been finished. And facing Jalen Turner, he's going to be finished. I think Jalen Turner knockout prop or Jalen Turner inside the distance via stoppage prop is going to be a prop that I personally bet in this one. I really do. And the only way he loses is if his mental is just completely gone. I think stylistically, he's going to cook him. I can't see him losing stylistically, but it's tough to trust a guy who retired at 30 years old and now has come back saying he found God. It's not easy to retire him. That's no shade on him. You know, I'm not saying that in a rude way. I'm talking factual statements that I've literally shown you proof of by showing you his Instagram. You know, we'll pop it up on the screen again. He's talking about finding God here, and it's just it's more volatility in the matchup. But Jalen Turner inside the distance is my official prediction. Next fight of the night, we have Ibo Aslan taking on Iwo Baraniewski. Ibo Aslan coming into this fight with a record of 14 wins, 3 losses, and Iwo Baraniewski coming into this fight with 6 wins and no losses. Baraniewski is the minus 200 favorite with the underdog price tag on Ibo Aslan coming back at plus 170. So Baraniewski is making his UFC debut coming off the Contender Series where he got a knockout as a massive underdog. We bet on the fight ends via KO in that spot. And the reason I did that was because both fighters hit very hard, put it that way. Baraniewski has a strong judo base, so he likes to trip his opponents, hip toss his opponents, and get on top. And I think he will attempt that here, but he's also got a lot of power. In this fight, I think he's going to need both. You know, Ibo Aslan seems to have very, very bad jiu-jitsu and very bad grappling in general, but he has some good power on the feet. So I think Baraniewski can easily go to his takedowns and find some stoppage from top position here. I also think that he can land a knockout blow. I don't think Aslan has great defense on the feet, and I could see Baraniewski landed another knockout, but I tend to think he's going to go for a grappling game plan here. Now, at the end of the day, it's a UFC debut, shit can happen, and I could see Ibo Aslan knocking him out early. I thought that might happen on the Contender Series. That's why I bet ends by KO, you know? So it could happen here, but I just don't rate Ibo, man. Looking at his fight against Billy Elikana, he let the fight get away from him in one of the worst fights in UFC history. It was very similar to Derek Lewis versus Francis Ngannou, where absolutely nothing happened. You look at his fight versus Ion Cutelaba, and he gets completely murdered on the ground within a couple of minutes. You know, he doesn't look good in that fight at all. And I just feel like he's got skill gaps everywhere, and outside power early, he doesn't have much to offer. He did train in Dagestan for his last camp, so maybe he's improved in the grappling. But I think Baraniewski, his lifelong training in judo is probably going to be enough to take the fight down to the ground and finish him on the ground if he needs to. So a quick prediction here, boys. I don't have too much to say about this one, but I will take Baraniewski to get the first round stoppage. I don't mind the under 1.5 rounds, depending on the odds. They're not out yet for this fight because I feel like somebody's getting finished early. And boys, remember, if you want my 2 free parlays with boosted odds, by the way, you can check the link down below and I'll give you them. They're going to be in my Telegram already, waiting for you on arrival. But now for the next fight of the night. In the next fight of the night, we have Mansour Abdul-Malik taking on Antonio Tricoli. Malik coming into this fight with a record of 8 wins, no losses, 1 no contest. Antonio Tricoli coming into this fight with a record of 12 wins and 5 losses. Currently, they have Mansour as always, the biggest favorite on the card at minus 1,000 with the underdog price tag on Antonio Tricoli coming back at plus 650. It's going to be another quick breakdown, boys, because we have a minus 1,000. I ain't going to speak to you for 20 minutes about a minus 1,000 unless I'm fading them like I did with Estela Nunes earlier this year at plus 750 odds against Loma Lukbumi, who was minus 1,000, and we almost cashed that one. I felt like she won. It is what it is. Rest in peace to plus 750 odds. Would have probably been the biggest cash ever. Anyway, I ain't fading the minus 1,000 in this fight like I did there, boys. Mansour Abdul-Malik's not the best fighter of all time, in my opinion. He's very heralded. He's heralded as one of the best upcoming prospects. He's obviously good, very physical, has a lot of potential, but I don't really see it in his game, man. He's open on the feet. He gets cracked a little bit. I think he could be a little bit chinny. His wrestling is strong and physical, but not that technical. He has very good ground and pound. I'd say that's probably the best asset of his game, you know, ground and pound. But everything else is very raw. He's just super athletic and a freak, man. So that's what carries him over the line. That's all he's going to need here against Tricoli. Tricoli is like a professional or semi-professional poker player. So we've seen him in tournaments, in poker tournaments, in Las Vegas. And I feel like he likes, and he's winning them as well. So I think he likes that more than MMA. It's probably, I don't know if he's well trained for this fight. So if we scroll on Tricoli's Instagram, right, every single recent post for the most part is about poker, you know. Like I said, poker player. He's winning poker tournaments. He's got a lot of videos, content, poker content. If we scroll back a couple of years, everything was fight content. So it seems like he's transitioning into more of a poker player now. And he hasn't got much skill set for Malik here. Like I said, I can never trust Malik because of his raw skill set, and I don't think he's developed yet at minus 1,000. But how the hell can I trust Tricoli, who seems to be more like a poker player / poker content creator? I can't do it, man. Tricoli's tough at times. You know, he took Shah a bullet to the third round where he got finished and he was looking decent in that fight. But outside that, he hasn't shown us much in the UFC, man. So yeah, Mansour, I got him to finish him maybe in round 2 or something, because Tricoli's not a bitch. He's pretty tough, and Mansour, he's not like an early finisher in my opinion. If he gets you down, he can finish you, but he takes some time to work into fights. His fight against Cody Brundage was a poor performance, strange performance. So who knows what Mansour we will get here. But yeah, I'm going to predict Mansour for like a second round stoppage or maybe a early or late first round stoppage, something like that. In the next fight, the first fight of the night is Muhammad Naimov taking on Myron Santos. Naimov coming into this fight with a record of 13 wins, 3 losses. Santos, on the other hand, very high quality record, 16 wins with only 1 loss. Currently, they have Myron Santos, the pretty big favorite, minus 245 with the underdog price tag on Muhammad Naimov coming back at plus 210. So yeah, first things first, boys. I think both fighters are fortunate to have some of the wins they have in the UFC. Myron Santos versus Francis Marshall fight could have been scored the other way. I understand why it was scored for Santos. A lot of robbery calls after that fight, even myself, but watching it back, I don't think it was as bad as what I first saw. But, arguably, he should have lost that fight. He also went to split decision as well in the Ultimate Fighter, so that could have been scored against him. And then you look at the record of Muhammad Naimov and his Nathaniel Wood fight, he's cheating throughout the entire fight. Could have been finished in that fight as well, holding the gloves, like doing everything. Poking eyes, kicking the balls. That fight could have easily been a loss. We look at his fight against Bogdan, extremely close fight. 1 or 2 sequences change, he would have lost that fight. So I feel like both fighters have been, semi-lucky. And like I always say, boys, every single performance that you see in the octagon doesn't mean that that fight's going to go that way every time they fight. You know what I mean? Like Naimov might rematch Wood tomorrow and get finished in round 1. Honestly, would favor Wood quite heavily in that fight. Just on the day, he lost. My whole base is, or the thing I'm looking at the most in this fight is just the ceiling of Myron Santos. I think he's a very good fighter. Yes, he's got a bit lucky in some of his performances, but he's only young, man. He's 25 years old. He's going to be improving every single fight at a rapid rate. I think we could even see that in the Sadiq Youssef fight. It was a very mature performance, a solid performance. Although he didn't get the finish to which I thought he might do, he still fought very well in that fight, and I think he's getting better and better. Muhammad Naimov is going to need to grapple here. He's very physical early, but he gasses out in almost every single fight. Look at the Felipe Lima fight, even look at the Nathaniel Wood fight. I think he was tiring in round 3. Basically every fight, honestly, Muhammad Naimov tires late, and I don't think he's going to be able to grapple Santos in round 3. I don't think he's going to be able to grapple Santos in round 2 unless he's fighting a very good game plan where he only grapples for 1 minute of each round, something like that. But I think he kind of needs to grapple fuck Santos to win, because on the feet, I think Santos is too much of a sniper and he's going to light Muhammad Naimov up and maybe even drop him and maybe even finish him. So I just feel like it's slim margins for Naimov, because the game plan that Naimov needs to fight to win is a grapple fucking game plan. He's not going to win on the feet over 15 here. He's just not. He's got some good kicks, some good spinning kicks and some power in his hands, but he doesn't have a striking background or any type of technicality in the striking like Santos. Santos will light him up on the feet if this is a striking contest. So he needs to wrestle. If he wrestles though, he's going to tire out. So he can't wrestle a lot. He can only wrestle a bit. And so I just feel like if he does that, he's probably still not going to win, because he'll probably lose on damage, and Santos will be able to defend some takedowns and land the better shots on the feet. And as we know, in 2025, moving into 2026, damage is scored for the most part higher than everything else. And I think Santos is going to do way more damage in this fight. So yes, Naimov can win, and Santos does fight on slim margins sometimes, but I just feel like the game plan that Naimov needs to implement to win this fight is a tough game plan to consistently win on against someone like Myron Santos. I think Santos is more likely to win the fight inside the distance, and I think he's more likely to win the fight via decision. And I think he's way more likely to be improving and show a better performance than he's ever shown in this fight. So, I'm predicting Myron Santos fairly confidently in this one. All right, lads, hope you enjoyed the video. Let's cash again, like we've been doing almost every single week, every single month. It's been the best year of my life, boys, and I'm here every single week in front of the video camera to help put profit in your pockets. So subscribe, help me get to 20K, and I'll do a giveaway, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.